I have the great honor of having His Excellency, the Ambassador of Egypt to Kenya with us, perhaps for a possible follow-up in the future. He's the one representing us here 24/7 in this beloved country, Kenya. So let me just, before I give you the 5 points of priorities, to tell you that I've been very much reassured after listening to the important speech by His Excellency, the President of Kenya, President Kenyatta, and other speakers today, that the priorities of COP27 for climate change is going to address the main issues of concern for Africa and for the developing economies. The 12 points raised earlier by His Excellency, the President of Kenya, are fully aligned with the 5 points that I'm going to share with you. The first point is that hosting a summit in a developing economy in Africa would make it different in terms of the points of emphasis. The climate agenda have been suffering from a reductionist approach and ignoring many of the important elements of sustainable development. And it's about time to take a holistic approach to climate change. By that, we cannot talk about climate without addressing the issues related to poverty, matters related to work opportunities, issues related to food security, matters related to access to electricity and water management. So if we manage to have the investments required in mitigation, adaptation, in full alignment, as mentioned today, with the 2030 vision for different countries and for the 2063 priorities for the African Union, the people, the ordinary people, will appreciate the efforts in the investments of adaptation and mitigation on climate. As important as they are, but basically the full alignment of these priorities with the issues of concern to the general public is going to be a priority for this summit in Egypt. The second area of focus, and I think I liked as well what the President mentioned and others, the emphasis on action, the decade of action. So as mentioned by the Egyptian presidency, the focus is going to be on implementation. We have been hearing pledges, claims, people demonstrating their love and affection to the planet and how they protect it, but it's very little that we have been seeing so far in terms of implementation and getting the summits to solutions in the field where it matters, especially in local areas, in governorates, and where the people live. So it's basically the focus on implementation, projectizing every main idea and initiative. This will make a difference in the case of this summit to be held in November. The third is basically about finance and investment. All of the above, the common agenda of holistic approach and the implementation would require finance. This finance should be really coming in the form of investment rather than more borrowing abroad. Many of the African countries had reached limits of borrowing, and it's about time really to expect the investments to provide the solutions. As mentioned several times, the African continent, the whole of Africa, is only responsible for 3% of the emissions. So it is fair to consider that Africa will not really borrow for more than 3% perhaps in order to deal with the problems of climate. So where the money should be coming from, it should be coming from grants, should coming from the commitments that had been made back in Copenhagen in 2009, the famous 100 billion that so far has never been met fully. And more importantly than the 100 billion, because the agenda that was mentioned today just for some countries in the African continent would require more than $100 billion a year. So this is basically, we need this kind of money to support and leverage finance and private sector investments. The fourth is basically about regionalization. That many of the projects, as mentioned today, will not really be feasible enough unless we are going to be taking them in more than one country. So the regional approach and having some sort of good matchmaking between the promised funding and the opportunities in Africa, that would be a great deal of work. And actually with the Economic Commission for Africa and the other economic commissions for Asia, for Arab countries, for Europe, and for Latin America and the Caribbean, we are going to be having 5 regional fora or roundtable focusing on getting the supply of funds to meet the projects. So perhaps through the distinguished media, members of the media and the press today, you encourage your business communities, your aggregators, and federations of industry and the business community to bring their projects, especially the projects that are requiring this kind of funding. And we are going to be announcing through our COP27 portal, which is going to be available very soon, in addition through the Economic Commission of Africa and the rest of the region economic commissions, the timeline for that. And then the final point, to the interest of all of those who are attending here, we are taking for the first time very serious attention to localization of climate agenda. So the role of villages, townships, governorates, municipalities, and how they are going to be taken a priority when it comes to having all of these projects. And when we talk about these projects, they are not just going to be in infrastructure. In order to benefit from climate, you need to invest in human capital, health, service, education. You need to invest in infrastructure, including the digital infrastructure, and you need to invest as well at the local level where it matters, in resilience, in adaptation, and of course, in mitigation. These are the 5 priorities that I see them. These are not the official ones, but these are basically the pledges coming from the champions, which are basically the non-state actors working to support the champions based on the Marrakesh framework that was established in the special summit of the climate back in 2016. That is basically organizing our work. Having said that, I'm very optimistic that, as quoting one of the participants in our roundtable today, don't expect from Africa just complaining about problems, yes, but we have solutions. We have solutions. We are providing ideas. We are providing in areas of adaptation and mitigation when it comes to energy, when it comes to water management, to the nexus between food and energy and the agricultural sector development solutions. So in all of the areas of mitigation, adaptation, and dealing with the immediate needs and linking that all to the SDGs, we have this kind of an approach that I hope it will be really with good response from those whom are expecting their partnership with us. The governments that have surpluses, especially the advanced economies that made pledges during the years, and of course the business community with support of the civil society. This reminds me of a similar question that I listened to carefully back on 2008. In the very week of the collapse of Lehman Brothers, when there was the global financial crisis. At the time, I was a Minister of Investment for Egypt, and everybody said, well, how are you going to be doing your function? There was a collapse in the global financial system. Guess what? On the same day, with delegation, we went to different countries and places not badly affected by the crisis then, from countries like Korea, Vietnam, China, and Japan. And then we went to some other emerging markets to push for the priorities of investment. And I'm happy to see, if you are checking some of the outcomes of this kind of visit, I'm happy that this is, despite the risks, similar to the risks that you are talking about now, they were really with some good return, including the establishment of one of the biggest manufacturing establishment in Africa on digital solutions and the tablets by Samsung. What I'm trying to say, yes, you are very much right. The political crisis in the Ukraine, the war in the Ukraine, we hope and pray for that to end as soon as possible. Not for the economic agenda, not for the climate agenda to take its right place, but basically war is devastating, is destructive, and there are many innocent lives that are being lost as we speak. At the same time, you are rightly saying after COVID-19 we have been impacted, debts have been on the increase, growth rates have been in the decline, inflation, we have unprecedented inflation rates for almost 40 years. What is the solution for all that investment? In order to deal, yes, there are high risks, perceived high risks. Perhaps the perceived high risks are more than reality, but we're inviting people not to lose their money as they lost it in the stock exchanges when they went into irresponsible gambling. I wouldn't even say speculation. Now the opportunities, if you come to Africa, to many of the developing economies, you will be seeing more links to the real economy where it matters. There are opportunities in the agricultural sector, which is being rediscovered because of the food crisis that happened after the Ukraine war. There are opportunities now to invest in alternatives of sources for fertilizers, which we are being affected by after that war as well. And then there is the realization that you cannot really depend on some particular centers. This was the debate about the supply chain even during the time of COVID-19. So for people who are really looking for rewiring the supply chain and seeing new locations and providing more support to trade and investment, Africa is an opportunity. Many of the developing economies are an opportunity, and there are these kind of appetite still, despite the high risk, with many of the investment funds, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds that will be looking more for decent return. Yes, there is risk, but Africa is providing some decent return. Emerging markets are providing the same kind of thing. It's about time to get investment where it matters, linking it to the real economy, to the agriculture, to manufacturing, to real services, to infrastructure. And this, actually, I see a blessing in the many crises that we went through during the last couple of years, and Africa, again, could provide some decent solutions for that.